Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to finally overcoming procrastination and disorganization. I am Gretchen Wegner, and I help stressed out students finally feel smart and confident and ready to rock school, whether that is high school, college, or grad school. And I'm so delighted to have so many of you with us today. We had about 50 people signing up. So many of you will hopefully see in the chat shortly. And by the way, as you arrive, please know there's a tiny little bit of delay. So when you type in the chat, it takes sometimes about 20 to 30 seconds for me to see it. But as you show up and I start doing some of these introductions, I would love it if you would also introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us where in the country you are, because I think you're starting to come from all over. And also tell us what is your go-to distraction that you choose when you really want to procrastinate. So go ahead and put those into the chat as you arrive. And I want to introduce someone very important to me and to you, Megan Scott. Say hi, Megan.
Hi, guys. I'm going to be, sorry.
Go ahead.
Running the chat.
Love it.
So anything you guys want to comment on, questions, technical difficulty, concerns, I will be in there. And I love to talk, so let's chat it up with Gretchen.
Yes, and speaking of the chat, I realized we should, can you kind of tell them where it is and tell them a little bit about the little tabs at the top?
Definitely. So if you look on your screen on your right hand, at least my right hand, there are little tabs, chat, polls, attendees, and pop-ins. I think you guys also have. But under the chat bar is where all the chat will be. Anything you type in into that lower bar right there will pop up in the chat for everybody to see. And then I think that's the most important part. At the top of the chat, there says a little admin notice that has after the webinar where we'll be doing the question and answers with Gretchen, and the link is up there. So if you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to write in the chat, and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. And so you can go ahead and make yourself invisible, but Megan may pop in from time to time as well if she needs to interrupt me to communicate anything. So this is a really exciting moment for me. And it's exciting because I have been dreaming for ages about launching a cost-effective program to help students learn all those things that for some reason they just don't seem to teach you in schools. And actually, the more and more I'm working with grad students these days, I'm seeing how desperately even the grad students are wanting some of the same strategies and tools that I work on with the 6th and 7th graders and the high school students. So we are all in this together because our education system tends to overlook some of these really important details around organization and time management and study skills. So I am thrilled to be able to bring some of that to you today for free, and later on I'll be telling you about, drum roll, please, my new program called Your Best Semester Ever. And it's a semester-long program where we'll be covering pretty much every skill that they didn't teach you in when you were in school, and now you'll get it from me, but more about that later. I want to make sure that I have covered all of the basics before we dive in. Oh, and when I'm looking down, by the way, I want to show you some of the behind the scenes here. I have a stack of cards. And these cards are basically what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I don't like PowerPoint at all, and I'm a really hands-on person. I get really bored unless I'm moving, which is one reason I teach creative study skills. And I wanted you to see this because it's actually one way that I memorized what I was going to be doing with you today by drawing fun pictures. And so when you see me looking down occasionally, I'm referring to my cards. Okay, I am realizing actually, sorry for the quick little moment here. Oh, there we go. I hadn't enabled my own chat box. So there you are. Hi, everyone. And just a reminder for those popping in, let us know where you are in the country and tell us what your go-to distraction is when you're wanting to procrastinate. I have a lot of information for you today, and I am going to be pretty much lecturing, which is one of the worst ways to teach. I will be asking you from time to time to answer some questions in the chat, but I want to make sure that you have paper and pencil or pens or pretty colors or something, because I'm going to be moving so fast that you're really going to want to write down a lot of what I say. And you could come back and watch the recording after, but let me tell you right now, one of the things we're going to be working on during the Best Semester Ever program is how to be efficient with your learning. And if you can take the notes now, why spend another hour re-listening to it later unless you really, really have to? So get paper if you haven't, so you are ready to go with your notes. Also, I want to introduce you all to my Pomodoro timer. This is a special time management technique that I'll be sharing with you later on in our time today. But for right now, I'm going to be setting it for every 10 to 15 minutes to ring, so that at that time I stop talking and we stand up and we do something physical with our bodies. It's really important to be moving almost every 20 minutes if you want your brain to stay engaged. And so that's one way I'm going to try and make this nonstop lecture sound a little less painful, is by doing some fun little movement breaks with you. So in fact, I'm going to set it for 15 minutes right now. Okay, and lastly, before we dive in, I know that there actually are a number of people tuning in who are not at all students and who just saw the event that I created on Facebook about overcoming procrastination and disorganization and thought, oh my God, I need that. So you are totally welcome. I will be sharing some very student-specific strategies, but I really encourage you to be thinking about how everything that I share is applicable in your life, and even reflecting about it in the chat. Don't be shy about using the chat, because that too will be helping you focus and pay attention if you are saying hi to each other from time to time. Okay, here we go. Card number 1. Why do we do it? Why do we procrastinate? And actually, I want to take a quick moment for those of you watching the recording to say, so we've got someone whose distraction is watching GTV. I don't even know what that is. And reading fantasy books and just daydreaming. Here's someone from Brooklyn, New York, whose distraction is social media. And Instagram. Here is a 6th grader chiming in about Instagram. She's in Colorado. So, oh, and there's another social media as well. So it seems like a lot of us have issues with social media. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm guilty of that one myself. But actually, let's think about social media as the distraction, or even that fantasy books. Why are we procrastinating? And the reason is that there are 2 different parts of our brain, represented by these pictures here, that are duking it out with each other. One of them is this one, the pleasure center. That is my attempt at an ice cream cone. And then the other part of the brain is the planning part, the internal planner. And both of these parts of our brains are usually at odds with each other. Now, some of you who have done my anti-boring approach to powerful studying have done this model that I'm about to show you again, but let's all put our hands up, just like this. I know you might feel silly, especially if you're watching by yourself or even with other people, but I highly encourage you to do what I ask physically. So this is a model of your brain. And actually, I should put the thumb right in here. This is the limbic system, where our emotions lie, and also the pleasure reward centers of our brain lie in this little spot right here. This is our neck, so this is our brainstem right back here. And the fingers right here represent the part of the brain that does all of that planning that I talked about, the planning centers. So notice how close our pleasure centers are to our planning. I'm sure there are lots of reasons why they're at odds with each other, but one of them is just they're really close to each other in the brain. And so when we're focused on something and we are consciously putting our attention in that place, we actually do okay, and the planning centers are fine and happy and moving along. But the minute we are not consciously moving forward, the pleasure centers, that limbic system, scoots on in, and it's like, oh, there was a little moment. Ooh, yay! I get to go to Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And I even feel that in my body as a twitch. I'm curious, actually, if you could comment in the chat about how you feel it or how you notice it when your attention is starting to move from that focused to that, ooh, I need a reward right now. Because I will actually find myself writing, and there's a hard moment when, oh, I don't quite know how to word this thing that I want to say, and I'm typing, right, because I'm writing on the computer. And suddenly, it's like a twitch, just like that. Like suddenly I twitch, and I'm on Facebook, and it all happens before I realize what's happened. And I think it's because in that hard moment where I was doing fine when I knew what I wanted to say, but in that hard moment, I wasn't consciously moving forward anymore, and just enough of the planner let go so that the limbic system charged in again. So that's why it's really hard to, I'm not actually sure that we can ever stop procrastinating. And so that might be the really bad news for a lot of you who I was talking to on Facebook. We're like, oh my God, it's such a problem for me. I need to stop procrastinating. And it's actually really hard to stop procrastinating. So in my research for doing this talk today, I found this quote that I really loved. Here, I'll zoom in. The question is not how to avoid procrastination, but how to do it well. How to procrastinate well. And you might be thinking, you know, is there even a way to procrastinate well? Our whole culture has told us that procrastination is this terrible, terrible thing. And but actually, there are some ways to do it well. And this particular article that I was reading said that there are 3 basic ways we procrastinate, right? We do nothing. Then we do something that is more important than whatever it is we think we should be doing in this moment. Or we do something less important than what we think we need to be doing in this moment. And I'd love you to be commenting in the chat right now, which of these do you think you do the most? Are you a nothing person, or are you a more important or a less important person? I do a lot of less important things. Like boy, oh boy, will I clean when there is something big that I don't want to do. And it's good. I actually feel productive, and I'm so grateful that I cleaned afterwards. So I actually was procrastinating, but it was kind of a good way to procrastinate. So please comment, and I will check in the chat in a little bit about that. Okay. Yes. So the doing nothing part of those 3 kinds of procrastination, that's the one that's troublesome, because that's when we're in apathy. The other 2, we actually can learn to use those really well, and to actually trick our brains to do the more important thing if we're not inclined to, or to do all those little unimportant things if we're not inclined to. And one of the things I'll be sharing during this talk are some ways for you to actually do that, to trick your brain. We're all about tricking your brain. Let's see. Everyone who has chimed in on the chat so far has said that they tend to do the less important things and not the more important things. So that's interesting. I'm wondering if we'll get someone who tends to work on the big projects and not wash the dishes. I'm sure there's that person out there. Okay. So these are the 3 main ways that we are going to learn how to trick our brain so that we can procrastinate well. One is to make sure that we have the right tools with us. Well, I'll tell you more about tools later. I don't want to tell you details right now. But if you are taking notes, I highly encourage you to make sure that you get these 3 things down, because then as I give you strategies, you can actually label those strategies as, are they tools? Are they routines, so things that you learn to do over and over again in the same way? Or are they getting the right people on your team, getting the right people to help you move forward? And I'll say now about this people one, there are lots of ways we can use people. Because if we live in families, we have the people who live in our household or our roommates. We have teachers and mentors and friends. Now these days we have Skype. I actually, as an entrepreneur, have a really hard time getting to work in the morning, and so I actually have a regular Skype date. Speaking of routines, I have 3 days a week from 9:30 to 12:30. I meet a dear. Now she's a friend, although she was just a worker, a co-worker a few years ago, but we meet on Skype and we help each other stay focused because when there's one other busy person around, it's much easier for you to be busy. So there are lots of ways to get this people need met. We're going to look at a cool, weird web tool that I have found and use a little bit later. But right now I want to say sometimes it is helpful to hire a coach. And I think I forgot to put that in my list to say later. So I do want to just name now, sometimes you really do need to have someone who's a neutral party, not your parent or not a friend or teacher, help you break things down and figure out what you need to do. And in my Best Semester Ever program that I'll tell you about later, I am finding some really cost-effective ways for people to be able to work with me. So I'm so excited about that. Anyway, let's look at our very first strategy. And let me take a sip of water. Okay. This works for the students. This works for you non-student grown-ups. It's actually super important for everybody to make time visible. Time is one of these weird things, right, where unless we have a way to actually make it visible, then it just feels kind of loosey-goosey, and especially if we're having this fight between our planning centers and our pleasure centers, if we don't actually make something visible, we are less likely to follow through. And research really does prove that our sight is one of our strongest senses, so we are 1,000 times more likely to follow through. That's not a scientific number, but I want you to get the feeling there. You're 1,000 times. Even if you don't think of yourself as a very visual person, you still are a human being, and you are much more likely to follow through if you make it visible. And that can be, like I drew here, a calendar. So that can be making time visible in a calendar. I often, let me get out my whiteboard right now. I often will, when I'm working on final exams with clients, will actually make, like, they'll be like, oh yeah, finals are coming sometime soon, and we'll actually make a calendar where we notice, wait a second, if finals are this week, let's say this is Monday, if finals are this week, and this is today, finals are really only in 2 weeks. And the minute I draw it out for them, they gasp, like, oh my God, it's sooner than I thought. And then we realize, yeah, so we need to get busy. You know, you can make time visible in an online calendar or in a desktop calendar. I use pretty colors in mine also to make things visible. I have 3 colors that I use. I either have work, self-care, or fun. And if what I'm doing doesn't fit into those 3 categories, I don't put it on my calendar. And I make sure that I color code these, because if I look at my calendar and there's too much blue, which is my work color, I freak out and I get a little overwhelmed. But I do notice that when there's enough of the fun or the self-care to balance things out, I'm a lot less overwhelmed. And I bring up overwhelm around procrastination too, because remember how we said these 2 places are so close to each other? Well, this is not just the pleasure center, but it's also the feeling center. And so if you are in a state of overwhelm, you are actually not going to have as good access to the planning centers of your brain. And so whatever you can do to reduce overwhelm is what you need to. And that's why making things super visible can help you. In my Best Semester Ever program, there's a website that those of you who decide to move on with me will have access to, where I'll give you some examples of how students have made time visible. We don't have time for that today, but please make sure, by the way, I didn't say this earlier, please make sure to let me know if you have questions about any of this in the chat now. We will be moving to office hours a little later, and you can talk to me then one-to-one, because I'm using a different website that will allow you to show up on webcam or phone. But right now, the chat will work well for questions as we go. Okay, so we are done with this one, the importance of making time visible. Wait, we are not done. I do want to show you one planner that I have had a designer work on. And here we go. And I have noticed for the younger students, for middle schoolers especially, that schools give them planners that require them to write what they need to do on the day it's assigned, not the day it's due. And I have to say, I think that's very bad. Bad, bad, bad. Like if your teacher tells you today that you need to do 4 things, 2 of them are due on Friday, 1 is due next week, and 1 is due tomorrow, they should not all be on the same day. To be continued. I assume you all heard the timer. That's 15 minutes. So if you will humor me, Megan, will you come be with me so I don't feel so alone and silly here on this little break? There you are. Thank you. So stand up, everybody. This is going to be like 20 seconds. It's really quick. Reach your hands out. Clasp them together. And, oh wait, I did that wrong. Sorry. Reach your hands out. Go like this. Turn them to the sides. And then clasp them together this way. And then fold them under. This is a really good position to be in because it crosses the midline of your body, and so it's actually before a test. If all you do is this for 30 seconds, it actually calms your brain. So that's my first tip. But my second is right now I want you guys to try to like your pointer finger. Can you find your pointer finger when you're all wrapped up like this? And then maybe your ring finger. How are you doing? Can you find them, Megan?
The ring one's a little difficult.
The ring one is? Are you trying? It's just not coming up? It's like, no!
It's there, but my middle wants to come up too.
Okay, unwind, everyone. Shake it out. Thank you, Megan. I feel much less alone when you're with me. Okay. Have a seat, everyone. Take a deep breath if you're willing. I need it. Have a sigh. Good. Take a moment just to notice how you feel if you tried that. If you didn't try that, you might also take a moment to notice how you feel. But is there a small way in which you feel refreshed? I'll be curious to have you put into the chat if that is the case, or if it's not the case. It's a good reminder to me to slow down, too. So we're going to set another 15 minutes. Okay, so back to this planner here, and actually, I'm going to show you the stage. So I have made it a point on the design that I made to create a spot where people write in due dates, and then to write your to-do list. So the due date is what's ahead of you. This is one way to make time visible. But the to-do list is what you have to do tonight. So, like, for example, there is a math test on Friday that's written here. So, but there's also a football game on Thursday night. Uh-oh, not going to be able to study for that math test. So because you've written things on due dates and you've made time visible, you realize that actually you're going to have to make your study guide a couple days early for this math test because you're not going to be able to do as well as much on this particular night. Alrighty, so make sure you've written in your notes, write due dates on the day they are due. And if you go to a school where they have a planner that's not structured in that way, you might not be able to, but you could still try and see. Okay. The next way to get in control of your time is to figure out how to create a planning routine. So notice my little stick figure dude here is writing. These are supposed to be little check boxes or check circles, and is writing a list. This actually, frankly, I just want to tell everyone right now, just because I'm an academic coach does not mean that I am great at following through with all of this. And this particular one that I'm telling you about right now is my bugaboo. I used to be really good at planning routines, and now I'm not. And the bigger my business gets, the more important it is for me to figure this out for myself. And so I've put some plans into place for that. But what I mean by a planning routine is have a time, the same time every day and every week, where you sit down and you think big picture, just like my little guy here. My little guy is actually thinking through what is it going to look like in the future, and is making a list, and then this little stick figure dude is going to put it on a calendar as well. Because if you just make the list, that's not as helpful as actually getting it in a place that's visible where you're more likely to follow through. Now, students and adults have different needs around planning. Because of the way, especially high schools are structured, students can't do a lot of thinking ahead because many teachers don't assign that night's homework until the day of. So most students, I find, need to create a planning ritual that's at the beginning of their homework time. So one of the things I recommend is when you come home from school, go to your study space, get out your planner, whatever the thing is that makes time visible for you, get out all of your supplies that you're going to need for homework, make your to-do list, notice, think about the week, and once you're ready to go, then take a break. And then take your half hour out in the driveway playing basketball, or preferably not a break with social media, but preferably something physical. And then your work is all set up because you had a planning routine, and you can then come back to work once you have had your break. It's also really helpful to create a planning routine that happens at the end of your study time. So you bookend your study time at the beginning and at the end. And this is actually one of the hardest things for me in my business. I really want to make my list for the day in the morning, and then in the evening, wrap things up, close things out on my browser, and make a little notes for what I need to do later in the week based on what I got done that day. Now you might be thinking, yeah, Gretchen, I've heard all this before. Routines are important, I know. But how do I get myself to do the routine? That's why I'm a procrastinator. And we're going to get there. I have a few ideas for you, but just know that this planning time is not something to be left out, and it only needs to take 3 to 5 minutes in the morning and 3 to 5 minutes in the afternoon minimum. Okay. Here is one of these ways to get yourself to do your work. When you need to, and that is to break tasks into tiny little parts. And in fact, for those of you who are listening in person, and even for those of you who are on the recording, you can do this too. Let's say that you have been assigned to read pages in a textbook and answer the question. So that is your science homework for tonight. Let's just say that. How many tiny little parts can you come up with in that assignment? I want you to put them in the chat if you can, and just think about, maybe even think about 1 minute or 3 minute increments. What are all the little parts of doing a science assignment where you have to read and then answer the questions at the end of the chapter? Because of our little delay, I can't wait for your answers to come in. So I'm going to go ahead, but then I'm going to check later and see whether we were in sync with each other about this. So one thing I notice is that students just think, I have science to do. And they don't think, well, first, I need to get my supplies out and get my textbook out and open to the right pages. So that's step number one. The second step, that's like a 1 or 2 minute thing, is to scan the chapter and just to notice, how much do I have to read? How many parts are there? What parts look like they're going to be interesting to me? What looks like they're not? So that's another part. Reading the first section, let's say you discover your chapter is split into 3 sections. Reading the first section might be your first part. Or even, I've heard some science teachers recommend, and I think this is a great idea, to not even read word for word from the chapter, but to read maybe the first and last sentence of every paragraph, and to look at all the pictures, just to get the gist of what it's about. And then you can notice, oh, so if I do that in 2 minutes, like I scan this section and I read the first and second, or the first and last sentences, so then I get like, oh, part of this makes sense to me, and I don't need to read it more carefully, but this couple paragraphs here, this I don't understand. So your next 3-minute chunk might be to actually go back and read that little part. So I'm not going to continue with this. I think you get the picture about how to break big things down into tiny, tiny parts. And then this is one of the ways we can trick ourselves. Because when we look at the assignment as a whole, that might look kind of important. But if we see all the little tiny things we need to do, and even if we sketched a little list out, suddenly they look a lot more doable, and they look like they are the less important tasks. And since most of you who I saw in the chat at least said you're the type of procrastinator who does the less important thing, you might have just tricked yourself to get started on the assignment, because you're like, oh, well, I can just skim and read the first and last sentence of each of these, and then you pulled yourself in, and then you might be willing to, oh, well, I'll just do that next little task too. So it takes a while, actually. You can't just, it's not easy in my experience to just automatically be good at breaking tasks into tiny parts. But I recommend that you turn this into a household game with your roommates or your family or whatever, and just kind of notice, like even cooking dinner, what are all the tiny little parts of cooking dinner? And see, make a little competition about who can find the tiny little increments that might actually trick our brains. Fun little thing to do. I'm just checking the chat. One person said get the book, yes. Another person said read and take notes and highlight the text. So yeah, highlighting could be one of those little pieces. Good. All right. I think we've covered this as best as we can in the time that we have right now. And in the Best Semester Ever program that I have, there will be some more exercises in the online component that that you can do if you want to get better at this. Okay. Those of you who are with me in the anti-boring approach got to know more about this, the calendarizing. And what I mean by calendarizing is put stuff on the calendar, because you've got it now, right? You've got your planner, you've got your calendar. It's not going to happen if you don't actually put it visibly in a place. And this is the other important thing. Make sure you calendarize play as well as work. I find that grown-ups are not very good at doing that, and teenagers are actually worse at doing that. But we stress ourselves out if we think we're never going to get to play. And so if we put that fun time on the calendar and actually write it, like I am going over to my friend's house, and I know I'll remember that I'm going over to my friend's house on Friday night, but don't ever buy into this idea that, oh, I'll remember, because actually you may not. And actually our brains in this day and age have to remember far too many details, way more details than our brains were evolved to remember back in those, cave people days. So that would be another trick that I would tell you, is try to erase from your vocabulary and the vocabulary in your household the idea that, oh, I'll just remember. You won't. So get it on the calendar and get play and work on the calendar. So that might actually mean blocking off a time if you have a calendar where it, says 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., etc. Blocking off a time to say like from 4 to 6 p.m. I really am going to work, and then at 6:30 I get to go watch that movie. Now, I hear you that you're like, yeah, but if I put it on the calendar, what if I don't do it? And I have that problem myself, or I used to have that problem. But remember, let me see if I can find this picture again. Remember how we talked about tools? So your calendar is a tool. Having the right kind of calendar is important. The routine, so the planning routine is also important in getting you to follow through. But also the people are important. So these days, I always try to make sure that if something is really important that I need to follow through on, I put it on the calendar, and then I attach at least one person, if not multiple people, to that in some way, either someone who's willing to check in with me. There's an amazing Facebook group that I'm a part of with some colleagues in my business coaching program, and we help keep each other accountable. And I have Lisette, as I said, on Skype. So I am building my team. And it's a really sad thing to me in our education system that we make kids think that they have to do things by themselves because grades have to be solo grades. And so therefore we think that independence is what we're trying to build up to. And I would actually say that we're not trying to be independent. I mean, of course, we need to be responsible for our own lives. But I would like to see more of us really practicing the skill of interdependence, where we need each other. Lisette needs me just as much as I need her during those Skype work sessions. And by the way, speaking of Skype work sessions, now that we have technology, people, you don't have to have your mom or your dad or your brother be a study buddy. You could have a friend, if you know that that friend is a good focuser, you could have that friend be a study buddy on Skype or some other webcam. All right. Here is the other trick that actually has blown my mind and changed my life, and I know those are strong statements, but they really have, and I haven't even cracked the potential of this trick I'm about to tell you. So get your pens handy, because I really want you, there's a script actually I want you to write down right now. There is a gentleman, I don't even remember his name right now, but he has come up with what he calls the tiny habit. And a tiny habit is literally teensy, it's 30 seconds or less. And in a tiny habit, you say, after I, ... and right here, wait, where is, there we go. Here is where you put something that you already know how to do. Like, I'm good at brushing my teeth in the evenings. So after I brush my teeth, I will ... and that's something I'm not good at doing. And I'm actually going to steal from one of the people on our call right now who is also part of the anti-boring approach, and she is preparing for a really a big, exciting mountain climbing trip to Nepal. And she has decided that when she brushes, after she brushes her teeth, or during actually, she is going to do some calf raises while she's brushing her teeth. I'm going to finish this thought, and then we're going to take our break. So I don't know how she's doing, and if you want to reveal yourself in the chat, my friend, you can, and tell us how you're doing with that. So after I brush my teeth, I will do 30 seconds of calf raises, or even I will do 2 calf raises. Even that is better. And then I will celebrate by, and this is so important, you must celebrate. And I'd be curious to have you check in, this person who I'm referring to, trying to keep you anonymous. I would be curious to hear if you're doing this third part. So a celebration is a quick little, like, yeah, or awesome, or even I have a client who is too shy. Her tiny habit is in class, and so she doesn't want to say anything out loud because that would be embarrassing. So she just, you know, a little second to just be like, yeah, I did it. So she smiles and she nods her head. So there are all sorts of ways that we can celebrate. But why do you think we need the celebration? I've explained it to you already. The limbic system, the reward center, is right next to the planner. And so if we give ourselves a little reward, which that smile and the nod or taking a moment to be proud of yourself for your 2 calf raises, if we give ourselves that reward, then we are actually getting these 2 to work together rather than be duking it out. And that's how we want to train them to be in relationship to each other. You can Google tiny habits. There's a great TED Talk to watch. There's even a free week-long course that you can take. We don't have time for me to say more about this right now because I'm going to get to show and tell soon and show you guys a bunch of supplies that I think are great organizing supplies. But please check out the Tiny Habits. And those of you who've been exposed to it in the chat, say a little bit about your experience with it. Someone, JC, just typed in it's BJ Fogg, so thank you for that. He's the originator of the Tiny Habit. Okay. Now I'm going to attempt to do something very dangerous, which is to share my screen, which I haven't done on one of these webinars yet. Oh, shall we stretch? Megan just said, shall we stretch? Yes, absolutely. This is why I need an assistant. It is very weird, people. I just want to say, it's very weird talking to yourself for an hour. So I really appreciate when you mention things in the chat. Let's see. Okay, this is the game we're going to play. Haha, you ready? Okay, hope everyone's standing up. When I say 1, I want you to clap your hands. So 1. There you go, good. And then 1. Clap your hands again, 1. 1, 1, 1. Good, I'm not going to do it with you because I want... I don't want to mess you up. Okay. When I say 2, I want you to stomp your feet. So 2, stomp. Good. 1, 2. Good. Now, when I say 3, I want you to turn all the way around. Okay? So let's practice, Megan. 3. Good. Okay, so ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, one more. One more.
I like this one.
Megan, actually, you tell me. You give us all a series of about 5 of those 5 numbers that we're supposed to do now. 1, 2, 3, but mix it up.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, ready? Go. 3,
3,
2, 1, 1, 2,
3.
3. Yay!
Woo!
Okay, good. One of the things we're trying to do with these brain breaks is give you something to do that makes you not able to think about anything else. So I hope that you got that in that last little one. Okay. You know what? We end in 15 minutes, so I don't think I have to set the timer again. But maybe I should, just to know when we're done. Alrighty. So, habitrpg.com. If any of you are sitting at computers right now, well, obviously you are. But if you want to type that into your browser, you might want to look at it. But I am actually going to attempt here to share my screen so I can show you what my Habit RPG looks like. I think I did it. Megan, please let me know if there's something wrong. So Habit RPG is a really geeky thing, and I am not very good at these kinds of geeky things, but this plus the Tiny Habit are the 2 things that I think can really transform procrastination. We don't have a lot of time for me to explain how this works, but I do just want to show you, that's right, I need to do it this way. I want to show you the different sections of it. So this is me, this is my avatar, and these right here are all the people in my party. These are some clients and 1 friend of mine, and we get to watch each other and play with each other. These are habits, things that we do multiple times a day, like every client note that I write on the day that I had that client, I get to say plus and give myself a gold coin. The dailies are things you just do once a day. So I have already done my 5-minute meditation today, actually. Notice it's a tiny habit, right? I've built up to 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is something that I'm willing to do every day. And you may notice that I just got some coins here. I have a total right now of 57 coins. I need 70 or 90 right here in order to buy some armor and a shield, which will actually help me go up in my levels faster. I don't want to get into those details, but you'll also notice that I have a list of to-dos here. So this is a really fun way to reward yourself for doing things. And actually, one of the people in my party says that under the to-dos, he motivates himself by, like when he has to do laundry, he'll type in here, let's see, get clothes together. Put clothes in laundry. Put clothes into dryer. Fold. So he turns one task into 4 points. And then when he checks them off, he's going to get himself gold coins. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm just going to delete these because I don't want to mess up my own my own point system. But there's your little glimpse into Habit RPG. And it is just a phenomenal way to include people in your habits. And I would actually recommend that, again, for those of you who either live in family situations or who live with roommates, get on this, create your own tiny habits, teeny tiny habits, right? Get them into Habit RPG, know what each other's habits are, and then learn how to compete against each other. I will also say that there are some forums inside Habit RPG where people with ADHD or ADD or grad school students or whatever can get together and discuss their habits, and it's been really inspiring for me to see communities come up where everyone is really talking about, like, how do I make myself sit down and write this paper when I really don't feel like it? So Habit RPG is a super, super wonderful tool, and it's absolutely free. Absolutely free. I love that part of it. All right. So I think you understand now those 3 things: the tools, the routines, and the people. Here's one other piece that I want to make sure that you get about the tools. And I want you to love your tools. So whether it's if there's a calendar that you have, I don't want it just to be a boring calendar that you go look ugh when you see it, because then you're never going to use it. That's why I personally use the pretty colors in my Google Calendar that I have, and it's why I decorated these 2 particular tools here to show you to whatever you can do to love your tools. And that's it. This is the show and tell part. I want to show you some tools that I have found that teenagers, and actually adults too, love so much more than the boring binders with the clips that you never really want to open because they're too loud, or you know how the binder clips, they like close like this and then you get paper stuck, and binders are just terrible, and also they take up a lot of space on your desk and in your backpack. So there is an amazing new system that's available at Staples, and Staples does not pay me to tell them about this, and it's called the Circa Planner. Here we go. This is it. I'm sorry. Circa Planner is the precursor. The one that's available at Staples is the Arc Planner. This is the Arc Planner. There are lots of little add-ons that you can buy for it, and so I got a pen add-on. But notice, I hope you can see, there are these funky rings here. And you actually can, there's a strange hole puncher where you can take them off, take things off, and pop them back on again. So it's infinitely customizable the way binder rings are, but it folds flat, right? It doesn't have to lay open, it folds flat. So what I'm about to share with you is the organization system that I have found that most of my clients who come into me disorganized actually benefit from the most. And disorganization is related to procrastination because you don't want to put off putting your papers away. That's a recipe for disaster. And so I think disorganization is actually just a symptom of procrastination. So in this system, this is your all-in-one planner. So we've got a pretty cover here. I sometimes will have kids create collages, so like if you're not into pretty, but if you're into sports or whatever, you've personalized it so that you love your tools, right? And then inside, I actually try and get most of my clients to have a planner right here so that they don't need an extra tool, because many people don't write in their calendars or planners because it's like, oh, I have to go get it. That's too much work. And so your procrastinator sets in. So just have it be right here. So when you get to class, your tiny habit is to, after I sit down, I will get out my binder thing and open it up to my planner. Then, I hope you're writing all this down, folks. Then I highly recommend that students have a to-do pocket. And pockets are great because it doesn't take any time to, again, you don't have to open binder rings. You can just stuff. And in my experience, most people who struggle with procrastination are stuffer organizers. So that's stuff to do. This is stuff to turn in. And then after that, there is a pocket for every class. So I just have a few as examples. There's English, there's history, there's math. So anything that your teacher hands you, you can just stick in those pockets. Oh, this is super important. I have a client who loves to draw, and she draws a lot in class, which I highly approve of, I will say first of all, because it helps her keep focused. And she loves what she draws so much she wants to save it. And so this creates a place for what she loves, because, right, we're supposed to love our tools, and we're supposed to calendarize fun. So our organization systems should also have a bit of our personality in them, and so she loves to keep her drawings there. This is the main, this is the minimum that I recommend. There are other things you can put into the ARC system, like if you buy yourself a hole puncher, and the hole punchers are super expensive, so don't get one unless you fall in love with your system. But this is the big old Mongo hole puncher. It costs $70, but then it's with you for the rest of your life. So you can make like flashcards. So to vanish means to disappear. And I drew pictures to help me. To scour means to clean thoroughly. There's my picture. They also have paper that some of my clients like to use. And one problem with people who tend to procrastinate and be disorganized is they don't label their notes. And so these notes actually provide a place for the label and for the date, which is really helpful. A client came in the other day going, oh my God, it just makes it so much better to have a little visible, right, spot where I write down what these notes are about. Here's the add-on of the little pen holder. And I had fun at Staples the other day buying stuff to show you. They have a ruler that can clip on. They have Post-it notes that you can clip inside. And they have these great little reminder note things that stick up over the planner so that it sticks out. So, again, makes it visible. So these are great. I also want to show off, every household should have this, and if you don't, please run and get one, a label maker. You might think that that's kind of dorky, but I have seen 6th graders who just really think organizing is stupid. I have seen them absolutely go crazy for organizing once they can print out these nice, neat little labels. So, highly recommend that. I'm going to check for a question here. Debbie is asking, how would you incorporate the system with a school-issued iPad? That is such a good question, Debbie. And because we're 5 minutes away from the end here, I would love to take that up in office hours. So if we, because there's a lot there about incorporating an iPad. I will say, though, that this is the one thing I'll say, that if you go to levenger.com, that's where the Circus system is, which is the more expensive version of the ARC system, and they actually have Circus systems that have a pocket for an iPad in them. So that's a really great way to do that. Yes, thanks, Megan, who looks like she's Gretchen. Just put the Zoom link there. So when we're ready to transition, it's going to be a little awkward for us to change locations, but it will be so much better because you can show me stuff in your backpack and we can just talk back and forth for a while. Okay, last thing that I want to show you, because this system is great, but it's not done yet. You can't do this system by itself, and if you try, you're going to be a disaster because your pockets are going to get too full. So then what you must have is an archive system that lives at home. And once you get this going, this is the same archive system that you can then pick up and take to college with you. So you're practicing an organization system that is going to last the rest of your school life, at least, if not longer. And can you see that there are tabs here for English and history and math and drawings? So they're the same tabs that exist here. And you need to create a routine. Friday is a good time for it, or Sunday night is a good time. I recommend that parents have some kind of cleaning routine too, and everyone does this all together for their own things. And you go through all of your papers. And you especially do it when you've taken a test, so your teacher's done with the unit. So for example, let's pretend this is history. You just finished Chapter 9. You took the test on Chapter 9. If your school lets you keep your tests, you have a copy of the test. And you stapled it on top of a study guide, which hopefully you made, which I'll be teaching you later in the semester how to do, and any study tools you made besides the study guide, and any relevant homework. This is all you're thinking about final exams right now. You're like, what am I going to need in 3 months for finals? And any hone it till you own it notes that you made, and I'll explain that during our note-taking time. That's going to be, I think, early October. So anyway, so you have this packet here, and here's another packet just to show you that it's, whoops, here we go. So here's Chapter 10, too. So when you're ready to study for final exams, you just go through your pocket and you take out all of your units, all organized here, all your study materials, all ready to go. It saves so much time. You could even have time to go out and do fun things. There we are. You can even go out and have time to do some fun things after, while you're studying for finals, because you've done all the work through the semester. So I look forward to taking more questions in Zoom. I also have two little time management techniques that I'm going to share in Zoom, which is the name of the new site we're going to move to in a second. But I want to say one more thing here before we go, because I don't want you guys to miss out at all. So this Best Semester program that I've been talking about is launching today, actually. This is the first webinar in the 7 that I will be doing. And it's really everything that you never learned in school that I'm going to give you in a semester. And because I'm doing this for the first time, I really want people in it, and I haven't had time to do a big thing to get the word out. So I've dropped the price like crazy. It really is kind of crazy. But the basic program, which includes the 7 webinars over 7 Sundays and office hours with me, so you can get your questions asked, is only $195 instead of $495. And if you want to tack on coaching to that, like I know there's at least one person in the audience who probably wants to take advantage of this, you'll get the entire program, so all 7 modules, plus 4 hours of coaching with me for only $495. And I mean, anyway, I'm excited. I really hope some of you take advantage of that, even if you want to grab the hours and hold on to them until next semester, because I don't think ever again will this kind of program be going away for that little. So I think Megan has put the links in the chat, and we will be putting them under the YouTube video as well for those of you who are checking in. And you have until about 9 p.m. on Tuesday to take advantage of this. You have a little time to think about it, but I would just snap it up, because I will actually close, if 15 people snap it up, I will close registration, because I don't want it to be too big while I'm still getting this all together. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, everyone, for this gallop through procrastination, or anti-procrastination, I should say. And I'm going to now take like a 2-minute break so that I can get some more water. And then I'm going to join you in that Zoom link that Megan has posted in the chat, and hopefully all of you got by email. You can call in to that link if you need to be running out and about, but you want to stay a part of that conversation, or you can show up by webcam. And if you've clicked on it already, you might discover that people can actually arrive in the room before I'm there. So just hang out, wave, chat, whatever, and I will be there in a couple of minutes. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and attention, and I am excited to hear some feedback about what's useful and what questions you have. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.